What is the difference between crows and ravens? Blackbirds swirling in the sky are hardly ever a welcome sight. Both crows and ravens have deep-rooted appearances, behaviors, and symbolism that pits them as the proverbial bad guys of most narratives. From their fondness for garbage to their association with death, these dark birds are perpetually linked to dark tidings and general spookiness. With these birds' obvious similarities, few people can actually discern between the two. That's where the following video comes in, as we explore everything there is to know about crows and ravens, including the differences between them. Let's get started. Crow 101. Crows are a group of birds that belong to the Corvus genus under the Corvidae family. About 34 of the 46 Corvus species are taxonomically classified as crows. In fact, the term is often used to refer to any Corvus bird. However, the general rule in ornithology is that crow refers to the medium to smaller species in Corvus. Crows are highly adaptable birds, as proven by their global distribution. From the Cape of South Africa to the beaches of the Sea of Azov in Eastern Europe, crows are everywhere human beings are found. Different places of the world have their own variations of crow, especially adapted for that environment. However, the basis is pretty much the same: a wholly or almost entirely black bird with a taste for trouble. In the New World, there is the American crow, or Corvus brachyrhynchos, that shadows towns and cities all over the US, southern Canada, and Mexico. The Tamaulipas crow, Corvus imparatus, is also a common sight along the Gulf of Mexico coast. On Hawaii, there is Corvus hawaiiensis, aka the Hawaiian crow, while the Jamaican crow, Corvus jamaicensis, also enjoys the island vibes of the Caribbean. There are even more crows in the Old World. The house crow, Corvus splendens of Asia and parts of Africa, is a notable example, as is the hooded crow, Corvus cornix of Europe and the Middle East. We also can't forget the pied crow, Corvus albus, arguably the most populous bird in all of Africa. Crows and other Corvus birds are in the Passeriformes order. The term is derived from Latin. Passer means sparrow, while formes means shaped. Like sparrows, crows and their cousins are perching birds with 4 toes on each foot oriented for perching. 3 toes point forward while the 4th points backward, which allows the birds to hold on to a perch. Ornithologists call this toe arrangement anisodactyl. The American crow, which is the most common crow species in the New World, has a bill-to-tail length of about 16 to 20 inches. The tail makes up half of that body length. Weight ranges quite considerably from 11 to 21 ounces, with males occupying the upper end of that spectrum. All crows are renowned for their intelligence and adaptability. They are omnivorous, which means they eat pretty much most of the stuff humans eat. They are equally opportunistic and will hardly ever say no to a free meal. Unfortunately, crows' cunning and eat-anything approach has earned them a bad rap as ratty scavengers and even pests. Not only do crows quickly form flocks, but these flocks can run rampage and cause trouble. Typical activity ranges from raiding and tipping over garbage cans to spreading said garbage around the place, and even leaving disease-spreading poop anywhere they choose. Flocks of crows are also notoriously loud, and with enough numbers can easily ruin a board meeting or class test with their incessant calls. Crows have also been the bane of farmers since time immemorial. They raid crops like corn and, again with sufficient numbers, can significantly reduce harvest yields if not wipe them out altogether. These naughty birds are the precise reason behind the invention of the scarecrow. In many cultures, crows play symbolic and even mythological roles. Civilizations such as ancient Greece and Viking Scandinavia regarded them as the manifestation of major deities like Apollo or Odin. In ancient Egypt, crows were the symbols of love and faithfulness, likely because crows tend to mate for life. Several other pagan cultures regarded them as omens of good fortune. Crows also have negative supernatural links. Several cultures view crows as signs of bad luck, poor harvest, and impending death or destruction. It's no surprise that a group of crows is called a murder. In numerous parts of Africa, crows are believed to be in league with witches, running dark errands for them as diurnal substitutes for owls. Others believe that some witches even shapeshift into crows to fly around during the day and wreak havoc on the community and their enemies. Ravens 101. Ravens are perpetually linked to and mistaken for crows, and for good reason. For starters, ravens also fall under the Corvus genus, which is a recipe for confusion. In fact, along with rooks, ravens make up the rest of the species under the genus. There is only one rook species, Corvus frugilegis. As for the raven species, there are several. There are 9 distinct species around today, distributed all around the world, and some of them have several subspecies. Paleontologists have officially recognized 3 extinct species. Of the species still around, we have the common raven, Corvus corax, forest raven, Corvus tasmanicus, thick-billed raven, Corvus crassirostris, Chihuahuan raven, Corvus cryptoleucus, among others. Ravens are generally larger than crows, and this is why taxonomists keep the 2 birds in the same genus. Rooks are similar to crows in size. The common raven, which is the most common Corvus bird in the world, is found all over the northern hemisphere, from Hawaii to Siberia. There are 8 recognized subspecies, each perfectly adapted for its native region. On average, common ravens range from 21 to 28 inches from bill to tail. Weight ranges between 1.52 and just under 5 pounds. These numbers make ravens both the largest Corvus birds and one of the largest birds in the Passeriformes order. Ravens are also wholly or mostly black, a trait that contributes to their reputation. Like crows, ravens are perch birds with anisodactyl toes. They spend most of their time perched and scanning for opportunities and threats. Ravens are incredibly adaptable and unbelievably smart. Research into raven intelligence is still ongoing, but it's clear that they possess strong cognitive and memory skills. Studies have shown that a 4-month-old raven has almost full cognitive function, and that mature birds have IQs similar to and sometimes greater than apes like chimpanzees and orangutans. Again, like crows, ravens are omnivorous and incredibly opportunistic when it comes to food. They will raid garbage cans and unattended lunch boxes, or even come into the kitchen to see what's cooking. Ravens will also enter open chicken enclosures and kill chicks for a quick snack, or even dig into an exposed carcass or body. Historically, ravens and crows are noted for intelligently following armies headed for battle because they knew a human clash led to a feast. In fact, Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin has a popular book called A Feast for Crows in reference to this very concept. Ravens also go after crops. These clever birds will also figure out that a scarecrow is actually harmless, and soon even more ravens will show up to raid. A group of ravens also has a name with a negative connotation, an unkindness. Human cultures throughout history have linked ravens to the supernatural. Pagan cultures, particularly in the West, have long associated them with death. Ravens are often depicted as harbingers or omens of death, symbols of death itself like the Grim Reaper, or as the cause of death. Adding ravens to a cemetery is a popular trick among directors of cheap horror flicks. Apart from death, ravens are linked with bad luck, witchcraft, and general bad vibes. Doubtless their cunning, black feathers, and love for carrion are key reasons behind this bad rap. However, the perception is not all bad. In Norse mythology, the raven is a symbol of knowledge and information. It also has played a role in the journeys and quests of heroes from Irish and Welsh mythology. In parts of Asia, ravens symbolize royal power and divine authority to rule. In R.R. Martin's books, ravens symbolize a number of things. For one, they are magical agents used to see across time and space. For two, they symbolize death and war. Thirdly, ravens are used as carrier birds to send messages to faraway recipients. It seems the author borrowed their information symbology from Norse mythology rather than actual history. Though intelligent and trainable enough for the job, ravens have never actually been used to relay messages. How are crows and ravens different? So what are the differences between these two birds? Well, the main difference is size. Ravens are bigger than crows. The upper body length and weight ranges of the American crow are on or below the lower ranges of the common raven. The size difference also lends itself to differences in flying styles. Crows are lighter and more susceptible to getting swept up and away by strong drafts. As such, they tend to fly low and flap a lot. Ravens are heavier and less manipulable by the elements. Ravens can surf on thermal drafts with greater control than crows. As a result, they can fly higher and soar without flapping as much as their cousins. Ravens generally have thicker beaks than crows. The common raven, and aptly named thick-billed raven, have significantly larger beaks than any crow. A raven's beak curvature is much more pronounced, too. Calls are another difference. crows tend to make clear, middle to high-pitched caws or similar-sounding calls. Different crow species have different calls, but they generally fit this description. In contrast, ravens produce gurgly, lower-pitched croaking sounds akin to bullfrogs. With a bit of experience, you could even tell the difference between crows and ravens from the look of their wings. Ravens have slender, elongated, and pointy wings, whereas crows have shorter and wider wings with more rounded wingtips. Additionally, you'll also find that crows flap their wings with much greater frequency than soaring ravens. When observing the two at close range, you will find that ravens have shaggier neck feathering than crows. Tail feathers are another way to tell. Ravens have wedge-shaped tails, which is very different from the crow's more rounded tail feathering. Sociability is another way. Ravens are more likely to travel in pairs than in unkindnesses, so if you see a pair of fairly large black birds, there is a good chance you're looking at ravens. Crows do travel in pairs too, but are much more likely to move as part of a murder, especially when foraging for food. If you live on the east coast of the US, you're more likely to encounter American crows than common ravens. Raven numbers are more concentrated from the Midwest to the West Coast. What is the difference between alligators and crocodiles? Massive, toothy, aquatic reptiles have been mainstays in the animal kingdom since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Adaptability, toughness, and ruthless effort are just a few reasons why these animals continue to win the tough game of survival. Today we're taking a closer look at two commonly mistaken cousins, crocodiles and alligators. What's the story with them? What do they have in common? And more importantly, what are the differences? Let's talk about it. Crocodiles. The word crocodile is used differently by people. In many casual situations, the term refers to any member of the Crocodilia order and the families under it. This group of animals includes caiman, true gharials, false gharials, alligators, and true crocodiles. This is because they all share similar basic traits like elongated snouts, tough armor-like scales, thick tails, and sensory organs on the top of the head. This group of animals is also collectively known as crocodilians, which fuels the confusion. However, if we're being specific, true crocodiles are animals in the Crocodiloidae superfamily. Under the superfamily, we have the Crocodilidae family, and under that, the Crocodilinae and Osteolimini subfamilies. All in all, 18 extant species of true crocodile are distributed among these subfamilies. The word crocodile comes from the ancient Greek, but there is a little confusion. Some scholars believe the word is taken from crocodilos, which literally means lizard. Others claim that the word is a combo of croce, which means pebble, and drillos, which means worm. Pebble refers to the thick armor plates that line their backs and tails. These plates are known as osteoderms, and they do provide a significant amount of protection to the croc's fairly exposed back. However, osteoderms also serve as calcium stores. This calcium helps combat acid buildup during swimming and provides female crocs with the basic component of their eggshells. Apart from the platy armor, the croc has a thick, leathery hide. Color ranges mainly according to age, with mature individuals usually sporting dark green skin, and juveniles being more yellow to yellow-green. Albinism occurs once in a while too. Crocs are highly adaptable creatures, and this is proven by the fact that they are the most widely distributed crocodilians. The most populous species is Crocodilus niloticus, more commonly referred to as the Nile crocodile. This massive predator is also Africa's #1 human killer, behind the tiny mosquito, of course. The largest is the saltwater croc, mainly found in the countless water bodies of northern Australia. Salties, as they are commonly known, can grow to be 20 feet long and weigh well over 2,000 pounds. The smallest species is Osborne's dwarf crocodile from Africa's Congo Basin. The little snapper rarely grows past 6 feet. Crocodiles range from parts of North and Central America to the Caribbean, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and Oceania. All of them are wholly carnivorous. They are formidable hunters, honed by over 55 million years of practice. Prey ranges from small insects, birds, and fish to massive mammals and even human beings. Yes, humans are always potential prey for hungry crocodiles, something we can't say for other scary predators like big cats or sharks. In fact, crocs will attack and try to eat anything they think they can overpower, and they have a lot of power to work with. Really large crocs are often apex predators in their environments, with adults having no natural predators. However, juveniles face a relentless gauntlet of hunters, Large killer fish, birds of prey, lizards, snakes, cats, and other crocodilians are just the tip of the iceberg. When they aren't killing something, crocs are either chilling in the water or basking in the sun. Life isn't too complicated for them. However, these two activities play essential roles in thermal regulation. As cold-blooded animals, crocs have to manually regulate their body temperature using the outside environment. They bask to raise their body temperatures and open their mouths to dispel excess body heat. The gaping jaws concept is similar to the panting of dogs. Like man's best friend, man's best killer does not have sweat glands to help with cooling. When they get really hot, crocodiles find their way back into the water for a while. When swimming, crocodiles are as graceful as any animal in nature, a far cry from their sluggish movement on land. They have incredible lung capacity and respiration, allowing them to hold their breath for up to 15 minutes. They also have webbed feet and streamlined bodies for minimal resistance to help them pierce the water quickly. Their powerful tails act as propellers and play a pivotal role when lunging at prey. Additionally, a croc can close its nostrils when submerging. If you, or a highly trained expert, were to look one in the mouth, you would also see a palatal flap that prevents water from entering the animal's windpipe. Their swimming prowess is key to their hunting strategy. To catch land-dwelling prey, they lurk along the water's edge. Using their green skins as camouflage, they lull victims into a false sense of security. When all seems calm, the ruthless hunter strikes like lightning. Using a combination of the tail and surprisingly powerful hind legs, the croc launches more than halfway out of the water, teeth first, at the unfortunate sole. Once the jaws are clamped, they will not unclamp. Salties and Nile crocs can easily exert between 3,000 and 5,000 pounds per square inch of pressure, so escape is no mean feat. After latching on, they haul prey into the water to drown it. When the kill succeeds, the feast begins. The classic death roll, a move when a crocodile clamps on a piece of meat and rolls around sideways to rip it off, is used to dismember carcasses. Smaller prey like fish and birds are just snapped up in a bite or two, much like you would eat popcorn. Their impressive brawn is matched with incredible brain power. These ancient dinosaurs possess a cerebral cortex, part of the brain responsible for faculties like reason, memory, emotion, decision-making, personality, and even revenge. That's right, crocs neither forgive nor forget, and they can hold a grudge for decades. Crocs can live for 30 to 40 years on average, and frequently live up to 70 years in the wild. Centurion crocs are not unheard of either. Their advanced biological makeup, complete with a 4-chambered heart and saltwater biofilters, is key to this remarkable longevity. Alligators. To be honest, alligators are very similar to crocodiles in basically all the ways that matter. They have tough hides, legendary swimming abilities, thermal regulation habits, and big, scary teeth. Gators are pretty smart too, and have proven to be hardy survivors in the face of intense human encroachment. They are cultural icons, pests, and ecological heroes, in equal measure in their native regions. Today, we have 2 true alligator species: the lesser-known Chinese alligator, Alligator sinensis, and the widely infamous American alligator, Alligator mississippiensis. Paleontologists believe common ancestors that crossed the Bering Land Bridge in the Neogen period are the link between the 2 species, which seem wildly distant today. Both alligators belong to the alligator titty family of the Crocodilia order. Caimans also belong to this family, though under a branch-off subfamily called Caimanini. This means caimans are more closely related to gators than to crocs. The family has been around for at least 37 million years. As the name suggests, alligators are only found in America and the Yangtze River Valley in China. In the US, you'll find them in Florida and several parts of southern states. But the greatest numbers are in the Everglades of Florida, where they thrive on the rich choice of prey. Gators are exclusive to freshwater. They love swamps, bayous, lakes, rivers, and even a good-sized backyard pond. Like their croc cousins, alligators are also exclusive to flesh. They prey on anything from frogs to deer and even family pets. Human predation is very rare, but parents and guardians must be extra vigilant when kids are near water out in gator country. Humans being bitten is a very common occurrence too, and the bites hurt. Alligators can chomp down with 2,000 to 2,500 psi of pressure, more than enough to crack a man's leg bone. Luckily, they seem to understand that human meat is more trouble than it is worth, so they usually avoid conflict unless they feel cornered. Alligators are undeniably large reptiles and rank high among crocodilians. However, they do not hold a candle to the largest crocodile species. The largest alligators weigh around 900 pounds and reach lengths of 14 feet. Chinese alligators are by far the smaller species, with maximum weights of 100 pounds and lengths of 7 feet. How are they different? Let's start by looking at their faces. If you look carefully, you'll see that crocodiles have a V-shaped snout, while alligators have a blunt U-shaped snout. Crocs are also dark green when mature. Gators are dark brown to olive. Juveniles can be tough to tell apart because they both have vibrant yellowing, but the snouts are different even at this stage. Tooth visibility is another telltale sign. If it has both upper and lower teeth visible when the jaws are closed, it's a croc. Crocodiles have upper and lower jaws of equal width, so teeth cannot be tucked inside. Oppositely, if you can only see upper teeth, you're looking at a gator. Crocs have external ridges and grooves on their upper jaws, allowing the lower teeth to be visible. These ridges are on the inside of the gator's wide upper jaw, allowing it to hide its lower chompers. We've already spoken about size. If the animal you're looking at appears to be longer than 14 feet, you're probably not looking at a gator. Tied to size is bite force, but we hope you don't have to use this to tell between the two. Big crocs can have more than twice the bite force and pulling power of alligators, which gives them access to even larger prey. Another giveaway clue is your location. If you're in Africa, Thailand, Australia, or anywhere outside the southern US, you won't be finding alligators in your neck of the woods. American alligators do share environments with American crocodiles, though. Crocodiles also have environmental versatility. They have special desalination glands that remove excess salt water from their systems. This means they can live in either salt or fresh water on a whim. Alligators do not have these glands and are therefore restricted to fresh water. Another notable difference between alligators and crocodiles is that crocodiles are notably more aggressive towards humans. Alligators tend to run from humans because they see us as predators, but not crocs. Crocs see you as food. What is the difference between leopards and jaguars? Big cats are quite something, aren't they? Their appearance, physicality, grace, and power are just a few aspects we admire and fear about animals that once preyed on our ancestors. In modern times, we have made them the stars of countless studies, analyses, and documentaries. Despite the fanfare, the subjects of today's video would much rather live out their lives in the shadows, where their stealth provides protection and sustenance. We are, of course, talking about the jaguar and the leopard, distant cousins often mistaken for twins. So what are the differences between the two? Are there any similarities? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Spot the difference. Leopards and jaguars are fearsome jungle cats, known for their hitman-style kills and equally cold attitudes. These super predators have been inspiring fear in their respective ranges for ages. You heard that right. Leopards and jaguars live in totally different parts of the world. The leopard, aka Panthera pardus, is the most widely distributed wild cat in the world. Despite rapid urbanization, leopards are walking the proximity to humans tightrope much better than other big cats. They are found in most of the undisturbed wildlands of sub-Saharan Africa that can support their prey. Leopards also thrive in India, parts of Southeast Asia, and even the Russian Far East. They are rarer in Central Asia these days, but they thrived back when prey was plentiful. Environments range from semi-deserts to dense rainforests, while trees, boulders, and caves are classic habitats. As you can see, leopards are very much old-world big cats. Jaguars, Panthera onca, on the other hand, are the opposite. This New World kitty rules as the largest cat in the New World. Its habitat stretches from central Mexico down through Central America and into the rich jungles of South America. It is extinct in the United States, but once thrived and lived in diverse environments. Jaguars tend to stick to the jungles, preferring rich rainforests and swamps, but they can adapt to dry grassland and sparse forests. Jaguars are much more ground-based than leopards and live anywhere that provides cover. As apex predators, jaguars sleep easy knowing no animal would dare sneak up on them. Leopards are not usually apex predators where they live, and they often have to worry about lions, hyenas, tigers, wolves, and bears depending on their range. Therefore, they need safer real estate. What other differences are there between the two? Well, let's talk about the area that breeds so much of the confusion: their spotted coats. Typical specimens of both species have yellowish to reddish tan coats with black, brown, or reddish spots called rosettes. Spot patterns are unique to individuals, like our own fingerprints. At a casual glance, it's easy to confuse the two animals. However, there is one sure way to tell. The large rosettes on the jaguar's sides and hind legs often form rings with smaller dots inside them. A leopard's rosettes, no matter how large, never have dots in them. It's a subtle difference, but once you learn to look for it, it becomes easy to tell them apart. Even melanistic jaguars with all black coats have rosettes with dots, but this is a bit harder to see. Despite the difference, those spotted coats serve the same purpose. The pattern is excellent camouflage for these stealthy hunters, allowing them to get fatally close to prey without raising the alarm. The difference in the style of spots is a byproduct of divergent evolution. Divergent evolution describes two or more species without a recent shared ancestor that have evolved similar attributes for similar purposes. In other words, despite being separated by oceans and millennia of years of familial branching off, leopards and jaguars evolved spots because of their environments. So, besides the rosettes, how else can we tell leopards and jaguars apart? Well, their physical profiles and size. While both are very large cats, the jaguar is significantly larger, bulkier, and has a more lumbering gait, although still very graceful and nimble. Jaguars also have a more rounded head, while leopards have smaller heads with sharper angling, especially at the jaw. Jaguars have an average weight range of 123 to 210 pounds, with males occupying the upper ends of that range. In some cases, wild jaguars can be as large as 348 pounds. Shoulder height ranges between 22 and 32 inches. These numbers place the jaguar as the third largest cat species in the world, behind tigers and lions. The leopard is generally accepted as the fourth largest cat in the world, but some exceptionally large pumas give it a run for its money. Shoulder height range is between 22 and 28 inches, while weight ranges from 45 to 159 pounds. The biggest wild leopards frequently reach and exceed 200 pounds. Again, males grow larger than females. With a bit of experience, you can also learn to tell between leopards and jaguars by the proportions of the tail. Leopards have longer tails, relative to body height, than jaguars. Leopards' long tails are perfect counterbalances for life in the branches and their daring aerial maneuvers. This ties into the fact that leopards are more arboreal than jaguars. Don't get it wrong, jaguars are very decent tree climbers, but leopards are bona fide acrobats. Leopards depend on trees for shelter, shade, storage, and scouting. A leopard can haul a dead carcass more than twice its own body weight up a tree to stash it beyond the jaws of rival predators, a sight that never ceases to amaze. It can pursue baboons and monkeys through branches as if it were running on the ground. Again, jaguars have no one to hide prey from, so they are less reliant on climbing. But what the jaguar lacks in climbing, it more than makes up for in swimming. Along with tigers, jaguars are the most water-loving of the big cats and spend significant time lounging, playing, or pursuing prey in rivers, lakes, and even the sea. Leopards, on the other hand, generally stick to the feline stereotype of avoiding water apart from drinking. However, they are also good swimmers and will sometimes dive for fish and crabs. That said, affinity for going in the water varies greatly. Some leopards love it, while others absolutely hate getting wet. Perhaps the avoidance of water is based on the need to stay alert, especially when looking after young. Splashing about can afford a murderous lion or tiger just enough time to sink you or your cubs, after all. Additionally, leopards tend to live in areas where water bodies are home to a little problem known as crocodiles. The difference in home ranges also means there are differences in diet, although both cats are wholly carnivorous. Jaguars prey on the common staples in its neck of the woods. This includes lesser and greater anteaters, capybara, marsh deer, monkeys, agouti, and jungle fowl. They will also go after a variety of fish, turtles, crabs, and even caiman. Footage of jaguars sneaking up or swimming up to the unsuspecting crocodilians never stops being mind-blowing. Jaguars close to human settlements will also turn their focus on livestock. South America teems with cattle ranches, and many of these are right in jaguar territories. Jaguars also go after goats, chickens, and dogs. Attacks on humans are extremely rare, and man-eater jaguars are unheard of. Depending on the region, leopards prey on antelope, deer, birds, lizards, monkeys, baboons, wildebeest, zebra, and calves of large herbivores. Livestock is also easy picking for a leopard, who can borrow your goats on a nightly basis without intervention. Attacks on humans are much more frequent, and leopards have a history of preying on young children left alone at night. Hunting strategies tend to differ as a result of the difference in prey, but there are great similarities too. For large mammalian prey like deer or antelope, leopards and jaguars use similar stealth approaches. They either sneak up on a victim or wait for victims to come to them while they're trying to blend into their surroundings. When the victim is close, they pounce on them or engage in a very brief chase. Once caught, the cats will use the retractable claws in their front paws to grip victims so they can go for the jugular. Both cats use their powerful jaws to clamp a victim's windpipe shut, causing suffocation. For smaller prey, like monkeys or birds, leopards and jaguars bite to break the neck. However, the jaguar has a special killing move that other big cats don't have. When hunting large prey, the jaguar may favor a quicker execution than choking. In such cases, the jaguar can literally crack skulls and manually turn off brains. It simply positions its deadly jaws at the top of the victim's head and bites down hard. More often than not, the skull gives in and the big cat's big canines deliver a death blow to the brain. Jaguars mainly use this method on caiman. The armored crocodilians have fairly thick necks, and choking them out is simply not possible. But even the caiman has vulnerabilities, and the jaguar has studied them well. Ideally, a jaguar will look for a caiman basking on riverbanks because they are easier to wrestle and overpower on land, where the cat is sure-footed. Attacking caiman in the water is much trickier, and larger caiman could even turn the tide on a jaguar and cause serious injury. When a target is spotted, the jaguar will sneak up and sprint toward the caiman from behind to avoid facing the crocodilian's mean set of teeth. When the jaguar gets on top of the caiman, it immediately presses its weight down on the reptile and angles for the killer brain bite. For a seasoned caiman hunter, struggles are usually over in seconds. These unique kills are possible because of another difference between leopards and jaguars: bite force. A leopard has a very high bite force of 300 to 310 pounds per square inch, which is more than enough for strangling prey and tearing flesh off bones. However, a jaguar's bite force can be up to 5 times that at 1,500 psi. That's more than hyenas, bears, and other big cats. This makes the jaguar, pound for pound, a champion among its cousins. Behind this incredible bite force is the jaguar's massive jaw muscles, which contribute to its head's blocky shape. Caiman armor and turtle shells require serious power to breach after all. Jaguars also love marrow, so bone-breaking jaws are a necessary evolution. The last difference between the two animals is that there are many more leopards than jaguars in the wild. Leopards' wider distribution and adaptability means there are up to 800,000 wild leopards in the world. Though far from endangered, there are fewer than 200,000 wild jaguars left. However, conservation efforts mean that we will be able to enjoy these proud and beautiful creatures for quite a while yet. What is the difference between rabbits and hares? One common point of confusion in the animal world involves a bunch of lovable jumpy bunnies. We are, of course, talking about rabbits and hares. Or is it rabbits or hares? Are they separate animals, or is it okay to use the terms interchangeably? That's what we'll be looking at today. So sit back, grab a carrot, and let's talk bunnies. What's up, Doc? When we're talking about rabbits, we are referring to a group of animals in the Leporidae family, under the Lagomorpha order of mammals. All in all, there are 11 leporid genera, which is the plural for genus. Many casual people often refer to all animals within the family as rabbits, and there is hardly ever any confusion. However, about 3 of the 11 genera are specifically referred to as hares. Taxonomy is particularly insistent that animals in the Lepus genus are hares. or at least jackrabbits, despite technically being in the rabbit family. 8 of the remaining genera are exclusively referred to as rabbits. But animal classification is an ever-evolving arena with its fair share of confusing half-contradictions. The term Leporidae is actually Latin for those that resemble lepus, and lepus means hare. Even the order name, Lagomorpha, is an ancient Greek amalgamation of the words lago, which means hare, and morpha, which means form. So, as far as the Romans and Greeks were concerned at least, rabbits can be defined as small mammals that resemble hares. Rabbits and hares used to be grouped among rodents, but a few exclusive traits led to their reclassification as lagomorphs. One trait is the incisor teeth. Unlike true rodents, lagomorphs have 2 pairs of upper incisors. Rodents only have 2 upper incisors. The term rabbit comes from the Middle English word rabbet, which is also borrowed from Middle Dutch. Today, there are up to 40 rabbit species, including 13 wild species and 27 domesticated species. On the domesticated side, selective breeding has resulted in the emergence of hundreds of rabbit breeds. Rabbits, like all leporids, are characterized by their unique morphology, which includes large hind leg bones for their characteristic hopping. When at rest, a rabbit's hind legs are plantigrade, which means the foot is planted flat on the ground. When in motion, the hind legs digitigrade, which means an animal moving on its toes with the rest of the foot raised. The bulk of a rabbit's musculature is in the rear legs, which need to generate as much force as possible for accelerating and jumping. The hind legs are key to these animals' survival because they provide the pace and agility required to evade the wide range of predators that love the taste of rabbit. Rabbits typically have soft fur of varying colors. The wide range of colors is, however, mainly a result of selective breeding by humans over the years. Wild rabbits generally have brown to gray fur and, in many cases, pale fur on their underbellies. This neutral coloration aids in their camouflage. The setup of rabbit eyes also points to their status as prey animals. Unlike predatory mammals, which have forward-facing eyes, rabbits have eyes on the sides of their heads. This gives them an almost 360-degree view of their surroundings at all times. After all, you never know when sneaky foxes or cats will try their luck. Funnily enough, a rabbit's only blind spot is straight ahead. Leporids are also characterized by their often prominent ears. Hearing plays an equally huge role to sight. A rabbit can usually hear you long before it can take a sideways gander at you. Naturally, this super hearing is priceless for evading predators. Ears also play a role in thermoregulation. Wild rabbits and hares in hotter parts of the world tend to have relatively larger ears than wild rabbits adapted to cooler climes. This is because the greater a rabbit's ear surface area, the better the ears are at dispersing heat. Rabbits in cold climates, therefore, do not need to lose so much body heat and have developed smaller ears. Biologists also suggest that since sound travels further in cool air, rabbits in cool temperate regions don't need large ears as much as those in hot regions. The warmer the air, the less efficiently sound travels through it. Rabbits also tend to have smaller ears than hares. Rabbits, wild and domestic, are found in most parts of the world. Wild rabbits can live in a wide range of environments, from woodlands, grasslands, mountains, wetlands, and even deserts. Many species live in underground shelters called burrows. When rabbits are grouped as part of a colony, they may connect their burrows to form warrens, underground labyrinths of tunnels. A few other species nest above ground. Rabbits have a long-running relationship with humans that stretches thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. We have hunted them since time immemorial and have domesticated and selectively bred them since the Middle Ages at least. Humans primarily harvest rabbits for their meat and fur. They are a common form of livestock because they don't require much space, are relatively affordable to rear, and reproduce quickly. We also have domestic rabbits bred for life as pets. Rabbits are adorable little munchkins that can provide many warm and tender moments to any loving family. A pet wabbit is a request that almost every parent has had to deal with at least once or 1,000 times. Rabbits also play big roles in human culture, whether as symbols of fertility in traditional cultures or in the hunter-thwarting icon Bugs Bunny. Rabbits are everywhere. They feature in religion, folktales, and art, which reflects our never-ending fascination with them. Now, hares share much of the same characteristic traits that rabbits have: long hind legs, long ears, eyes on the side of the head, and so on. This is because hares face similar circumstances to their lagomorph cousins. They need to stay hypervigilant, the ability to make a mad dash for safety at less than a moment's notice, and the need to breed and regenerate quickly. They are also herbivorous and rely on grass and various leaves, vegetables, and herbs. Animals in the Lepus genus are often called true hares because hare is used interchangeably with rabbit in several leopard species. The best way to describe hares is as rabbits on steroids because they take common rabbit traits and ramp them up to 11. Perhaps that's why they're also called jackrabbits. Hares are found in various wildlands and urban zones on all major continents except Antarctica. They are tough, smart, and highly adaptable. Like rabbits, hares have super long hind legs for insane speed and direction changes. These rascals are wickedly fast, and they can maintain speeds of 35 miles per hour. Their legs are much longer than any wild rabbit species, and their muscles are far leaner and fibrous. This makes them far superior to rabbits in terms of peak athletic performance and endurance. Hares also have highly tuned senses. Hearing and eyesight are all made for avoiding predators. Camouflage also plays a major role. From the agouti brown-gray of the woodland American hare to the snow-white fluff of the Arctic hare, blending in is a must. There are 33 species of hare all over the world, and all of them are wild. There are no domesticated hares because these animals have an untamable spirit. Hares also figure prominently in culture, old and modern. They are popular in most major media, and they've inspired numerous works in various art forms. In many cultures, they feature in folk tales highlighting the animal's incredible physical abilities, cleverness, and daring. The story of the tortoise and the hare has been told on all continents for at least a few thousand years. Of course, despite the great similarities between hares and rabbits, there are a few marked differences we need to look at. Hares versus rabbits differences. So just how do these animals differ? Well, for starters, hares are generally larger than rabbits. European hares weigh between 4.4 and 11 pounds, compared to the European rabbit's 2.6 to 4.4 pound weight range. As far as body length, hares can be up to 27.5 inches from nose to tail, while wild rabbits max out at about 15.7 inches. Most subarctic hare species lean toward red-brownish coats with whitish underbelly fur. Rabbits have a grayish-brown coat and don't always have pale bellies. Hare species in the northern hemisphere can also change color with the seasons. They go from reddish-brown in the summer to white in the winter. Rabbits do not have seasonal fur and remain the same color their entire lives. They also have different profiles. Rabbits have a round egg shape, and their backs are arched prominently when resting. Hares, on the other hand, have a more upright posture than rabbits, similar to cats or dogs. This is because hares have relatively longer front legs than rabbits, allowing for a more balanced look. This balance also extends to gait. Though capable of hopping and jumping better than rabbits, hares can also run straight like most four-legged animals. This allows hares to attain much greater speed. The two animals also differ socially. Hares are generally solitary or, at most, live in pairs when out of breeding season. Rabbits are more social and usually form colonies with up to 20 individuals. Rabbits are clear believers of safety in numbers, while hares find it easier to avoid detection when moving solo. Then there are the residential differences. Unlike most rabbits, hares live above ground full-time. They set up in bushes, grass nests, and depressions in the ground known as forms. Rabbits usually live in underground burrows and warrens. Warrens are especially handy because they have multiple entrances and many tunnels to confuse pursuers. The different home lives have also led to differences in how young develop. Born exposed to the unforgiving outside, baby hares, known as leverets, have no time to waste. Within hours of being born, leverets can utilize their senses, interpret their surroundings, and most crucially, they can run. Baby rabbits, called kits, are born blind and helpless. Rabbits can afford this style of reproduction because of the security provided by their warrens. However, the kits grow pretty quickly and are soon ready to reproduce themselves. Despite growing up faster than wild rabbits, hares live longer. A hare can live up to 12 years, compared to a rabbit's 9-year maximum life expectancy. However, these animals rarely reach half of these lifespans because of heavy predation by man and beast. That said, hares have an average life expectancy of about 4 years in the wild, while most wild rabbits don't even make it to a year. This speaks to the hare's superior senses and athleticism. What is the difference between donkeys and mules? Here on this channel, we take great pride in helping people learn how to differentiate between similar wild animals. But how well do you know your domestic animals? Because we have a fun one today: donkeys and mules. The following video is the most comprehensive look at what the similarities and, more importantly, differences between these two animals are. So let's head to the farm and get to know donkeys and mules a little better. Donkeys. Donkeys are domesticated members of the equidae or horse family, which play a number of roles for people, chiefly as beasts of burden. These familial groupings make them relatives of all horses, zebras, and a bunch of other extinct equids. There are two schools of thought when it comes to their classification. The first is to regard them as a standalone species. Those who subscribe to this belief refer to the animal as Equus asinus. Other scientists regard domestic donkeys as a subspecies of the African wild ass, Equus africanus, the animal they are derived from, and therefore call them Equus africanus asinus. For a long time, the donkey was called an ass, a term that originated somewhere in Eurasia a very long time ago. In English, the females were called she-asses. The term donkey has equally murky origins, and much unreliable speculation surrounds its etymology. Some say it comes from the Spanish title Don, while others claim they were named after a guy called Duncan who had remarkably large ears. In truth, we'll never really know where that word came from. What we do know is that the word began growing in the late 18th century during a time when language was being cleaned up, and vulgar-sounding words like ass became less appropriate in polite society. She-ass was also replaced with Jenny, which also led to the use of Jack for male donkeys. Young donkeys are simply known as foals. Donkeys are among the oldest domestic animals around, having first joined forces with humans between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago in Africa. The general belief is that modern domestic donkeys trace their ancestry to the Somalian and Nubian subspecies of African wild ass. Despite being domesticated long after cattle, donkeys proved to be a smash hit in Eastern and North Africa, given their stamina and drought resistance. Donkeys also didn't chew cud as much as cows, which allowed the nomadic tribes that domesticated them to save time and travel further with donkeys as pack animals. The animals also played a huge role in ancient Egypt, as they quickly became the backbone of overland trade in the region's harsh landscape. In the Old Kingdom, members of the royal families and nobility took them as status symbols. The more donkeys you had, the bigger deal you were. Donkeys have been found in the tombs of pharaohs, who were doubtlessly eager to continue flexing their wealth in the afterlife. The Egyptians were also among the first people to use the animals for proper agricultural activities like plowing. They also harvested their meat and milk. By 1800 BCE, the Mesopotamians had taken over as lords of the donkey. Breeding in this neck of the woods was instrumental to the spread of the animals throughout Arabia and eventually the rest of Eurasia. During these days, breeders got creative and started specializing. In Damascus, they bred large donkeys for riding in general commuting and war. In other parts of Syria, they developed smaller breeds, more suited to female and child riders. Eventually, the Greeks and the Romans got a hold of them and spread them throughout their respective empires. Interestingly, some cultures depicted the Greek deity of wine, Dionysus, as a donkey, probably because Greek traders brought the vino on the backs of, you guessed it, donkeys. Then, in 1495 CE, donkeys made it to the Americas for the first time, having hitched a ride with a certain Christopher Columbus on the second of his transatlantic voyages. By 1600, they had arrived in the land that would become the United States, where they thrived as beasts of burden for farmers and miners. Today, there are north of 40 million domestic donkeys worldwide, so many that some even live feral in the wild. There are about 185 different breeds in total. The greatest numbers are found in developing nations where basic agriculture is still fairly dominant. They mostly work as pack animals, hauling goods and people to and fro, or as draft animals for pulling carts, plows, and pretty much anything their owners hitch them to. Though famously docile, they can have an aggressive side. In some cases, this aggression is applied toward guard work, protecting homes and livestock from thieves or unwelcome animals. Their preferred method of attack is to rear on their hind legs and strike with their front hooves. Away from work, donkeys are an ever-increasing choice of pet for people with the space for it. Their calm, easygoing nature and somewhat cute looks are quite appealing, to be honest. Then we have feral donkeys. These are found all over the world and are typically descended from abandoned and discarded donkeys. Notable populations are in California and Australia, where they pose invasive risks like crop destruction and disease. Donkey breeding also extends to hybridization, where donkeys are crossed with other equids. One of the earliest were the Syrian and Mesopotamian kungas, the hybrid result of domestic donkeys and wild asses. Since then, a bunch of interesting hybrids have been produced, as we shall soon see. Mules. Without a doubt, mules are the most prominent of all donkey-related hybrids. That's right, a mule is part donkey and part horse. More specifically, a mule is what you get when you cross a jack with a female horse. In contrast, a hybrid resulting from crossing a male horse and a jenny is called a hinny. Now you're probably thinking, why are mules the more popular of the two hybrids? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. For starters, there are mating behavioral differences within the parental pairings. Jacks are far more willing to mate with female horses than male horses are to mate with jennies. Secondly, is the issue of uterus space. Female horses are generally bigger than female donkeys, so if a jack impregnates a mare, the foal will have much more room to develop than a hybrid foal in a jenny's uterus. Then there are hormonal differences, particularly between female horses and jennies. Jennies produce lower quantities of the hormone progesterone, which is essential for developing a thick uterus lining during pregnancy. Because of this hormone shortage, a jenny's uterus may be underprepared to incubate a hybrid foal, which results in the loss of the embryo. Then there are birthing risks. Since horses are often bigger than donkeys, birthing hybrids is much more dangerous for jennies than for mares. Ultimately, mules are more desirable than hinnies because they are faster and safer to breed and often come out bigger, stronger, and more capable of handling serious workloads. Mules and hinnies can be either male or female. However, regardless of sex, mules and hinnies usually resemble their fathers in the front and their mothers at the back. For mules, this means they have donkey-like heads, complete with long ears, and horse-like rumps, including a horse-like tail. Additionally, these hybrids are infertile and cannot reproduce. This is because their developing gametes, another word for sperm or eggs, cannot go through meiosis properly, and thus cannot merge with opposite gametes. In other words, conception is highly unlikely even when mated with pure donkey or horse stock, but it's not entirely impossible. Mules were among the earliest attempts at crossing donkeys with something. They emerged within the Mesopotamian sphere of influence sometime in the 3rd millennium BCE. Mules proved to be such a big hit that the previously popular kunga was cast aside and forgotten about. Mules grew in popularity due to their fine blend of the best of both the horse and donkey worlds, a blend that also ironed out weaknesses from both parental species. For instance, mules are considered more obedient, intelligent, and trainable than typical donkeys, yet they can live for longer than horses. Depending on the genetics involved, mules may be significantly larger than donkeys while retaining much of their hardiness. This means they have greater capacity to work and can even perform a wider range of tasks like being ridden. They have a well-documented history, being depicted in works of art originating from Anatolia to biblical Israel. The Greek poet Homer also wrote about the mules of Asia Minor in one of his great works, the Iliad. Mules also feature quite a lot in current-era history. After their apparent introduction to the Americas by Columbus, they went on to catch the eye of the first U.S. president, George Washington. President Washington is probably the most famous mule breeder of all time, and he is now regarded as a pioneer because his hybridizations were thought of as pointless by folks who appreciated the respective qualities of donkeys and horses. However, by the 19th century, Washington had been proven right, and then some. Not only were mules bigger and stronger than donkeys, they were more pliable too, while their maintenance demands and costs were far lower than those of horses. As a result, they were a popular resource for farmers, traders, prospectors, fisherfolk, and even the military. In addition to their impressive strength, mules are renowned for their sure-footedness on terrain that is extremely treacherous for humans and many other animals. Muddy paths, soaked beaches, steep mountain passes, it's all in a day's work for a mule. Despite their reliability, many mules soon found themselves out of a job following the impact of industrialization in the developed world. By the tail end of the 20th century, vehicles and tractors could haul and farm much more in much less time than any mule. These days, mules are more active in the developing parts of the world. The United Nations World Food Program is famed for using mules to transport food and relief to otherwise inaccessible areas. Like donkeys, mules are also kept as pets, while some people harvest them for meat. Other notable differences. Donkeys have noticeably flatter backs than mules, whose own backs have a curvature similar to horses. Like donkeys, mules have pretty short manes. However, their overall coats are short and fine like horses, not shaggy like donkeys. A mule is much more likely to be more colorful than the typical gray of a donkey. Depending on parentage, mules can be anywhere from white to black to chestnut and tawny. What is the difference between frogs and toads? Frogs and toads are among the most confusing animals in nature when it comes to actually telling them apart. Are there any differences between the two? Or are toad and frog just interchangeable terms with the same meaning? Well, stay tuned and find out, as this is exactly what we're going to find out in today's video. So without further ado, let's get started and learn more about our little amphibious friends. Frogs. The word frog is actually a far-reaching term that includes all animals in the Anura order under the Amphibia class. The name Anura is derived from ancient Greek and translates to without a tail, as all frogs have no true tails. Other notable amphibian orders are Urodela, made up of tail-sporting newts and salamanders, and Gymnophiona, which consists of worm-like caecilians. Amphibians have been around for a long time and are among the oldest of all vertebrate groups. As a collective, they've been around since at least 370 million years ago during the Devonian period. They are descended from lobe-finned fish that evolved jointed leg-like fins to crawl on the seafloor and later on beaches and banks. As you probably know, amphibians breathe air using their lungs. Scientists attribute the development of lungs as an adaptation to certain environmental circumstances during the Devonian. Some of the lobe-finned amphibian ancestors found themselves isolated in stagnant swamp pools. Without proper aeration, these pools had very little oxygen. So, to adapt, some of these fish developed the ability to poke their heads out of the water and breathe in gulps of oxygen-rich air. The rest, as they say, is history. Frogs, as we know them at least, have been around since the early Triassic, about 250 million years ago. The oldest frog-like creature, also known as a proto-frog, is called Triadobatrachus, and its fossils were found in Madagascar. However, a relatively new dating technique suggests that frogs, or proto-frogs, were around at least 265 million years ago, during the Permian period. This technique is called molecular clock dating, and it involves the study and analysis of DNA and RNA nucleotide sequences to find the mutation rates of biomolecules and ultimately deduce when certain animals or animal groups diverged from certain ancestral lines. Today, we have well over 7,000 individual frog species distributed all over the world, bar the Arctic and Antarctic. This makes them by far the most successful amphibian group and one of the most diverse vertebrate groups overall. In fact, 88% of all amphibian species are frogs. Most frog species prefer the warm, wet climes of the tropical zones, and therefore most diversity is found within those zones. The Amazon basin is the place to go if you want the best chance of seeing the widest range of these little critters. The further away from the tropical zones, the less the species diversity. However, frogs may still be found in subtropical and even semi-desert regions. Colder regions like northern Eurasia or Alaska and Canada are less friendly to frogs, and some species may be found there during warmer times of the year. You'll find that frogs and other amphibians have similar distribution patterns to reptiles, who are also notably underrepresented in the really cold parts of the world. This is because, like reptiles, amphibians are ectothermic or cold-blooded. Ectotherms are almost entirely reliant on their immediate surroundings when it comes to regulating their body temperatures. To warm themselves up, they must be in a warm place, like a warm pool of water or basking in sunlight. To cool off, they need to be in a cool place, the shade or a cool body of water. This is why most frogs alternate between life on land and in the water. This is in stark contrast to warm-blooded endothermic creatures like mammals and birds, which generate their own body heat and maintain body temperature regardless of their surroundings. So, tropical and subtropical environments are the best place for ectotherms like frogs. These places have plenty of sun, shade, and water for their body temperature regulation cycles. Frogs' native environments also support their dietary and reproductive needs. All frogs are carnivorous, at least in adulthood. Their diet consists mostly of bugs, flies, crickets, spiders, moths, and so on. Some larger ones, like the giant African bullfrog, Pixocephalus adspersus, are big enough to hunt and eat other frogs, fish, small turtles, and even birds. When it comes to reproduction, most frogs require ready access to water. This is because female frogs lay their eggs in water, and in time, these eggs hatch and produce tadpoles, aka baby frogs. Tadpoles are fully aquatic larvae that breathe through gills and swim using tails. They cannot survive for long outside the water and rely on their host water body for access to the plant material and plankton they feed on. That's right, unlike their parents, tadpoles have more herbivorous and omnivorous diets. However, as they mature, tadpoles go through a remarkable metamorphosis that echoes the evolution from the Devonian lobe-finned crawfish to the leaping-limbed frogs we have today. Their limbs start emerging, their tails start shrinking, and they start breathing air with newly formed lungs. Their dietary needs also move to wholly carnivorous. Though frogs have loads of similarities in basic behavior, diet, and reproduction, they are still very different. Size is one such area of comparison. On one end, we have the minuscule New Guinea amau frog, Pediphrine amensis. These tiny frogs, believed to be the smallest vertebrate on Earth, are only 0.3 inches long from snout to vent and weigh 0.00035 ounces, which is about 10 milligrams. Doubtless, you've taken pills bigger than this little guy. On the other end of the size spectrum, we have monsters like the Goliath frog, Conrau goliath, which can grow to 14 inches in length and weigh as much as 7.3 pounds. In other words, this tropical monster is more than 300,000 times the size of the amau frog. Skin coloration and texture are other areas of diversity, though all frogs have glandular skin that produces secretions. Some frogs have dry and warty skin, while others have smooth skin that is almost always moist. Some frogs have neutral camouflage-like coloration, greens, browns, and grays. Others have vibrant colors, blues, neon yellows, purples, bright greens, white, black, red, and others. Many species with vibrant skins and skin patterns are poisonous and use their eye-catching coloration to warn predators against hunting and eating them. Poison, you ask? Yep, some frogs like the blue poison dart frog, Dendrobates tinctorius azurus, and its cousins from the Dendrobatidae family, ooze deadly secretions from their skin glands. They're called dart frogs because many native tribes harvest them and apply their skin secretions on blow darts and arrow tips, making them poisonous weapons. Non-poisonous frogs also have secretions, but these are generally harmless if a little distasteful. As you can see from some of these defensive measures, frogs are not always at the top of the food chain, if ever. Though prolific hunters themselves, they spend a lot of time looking over their own shoulder. Snakes, birds, fish, and other frogs are some of their chief predators. To evade these predators and to remain in hot pursuit of their own prey, frogs have developed some interesting senses and mobility. Their eyes, located on either side on top of their heads, afford them binocular vision and an almost 360-degree field of view. This eye position allows them to scout their surroundings while most of their bodies are submerged in water. Frog ears, though not readily visible, are still very sensitive both in and out of the water. Hearing plays a big role in navigating their surroundings and communicating with other frogs. When it comes to mobility, frogs rely on their trusty legs. Frogs have 4 fingers on each of their forelegs and 5 on the hind legs. These toes are typically webbed to aid with swimming. The hind legs, in particular, are generally longer than the forelegs and are the heart of the animal's mobility. In the water, The hind legs kick hard and fast to push the body forward. On land, the hind legs provide the main thrust for frogs' trademark hopping and jumping motions. Toads. Now, let's talk toads. Let's start by saying that all toads are frogs. There are no strict taxonomic separators between toads and what people call true frogs. Generally speaking, most toads belong to the Bufonidae family of the Anura order, and therefore count among the many families, genera, and species of frogs. Several other Anura families have a number of animals whose common name includes toad. Toads have somewhat unique characteristics compared to most other frogs. One characteristic is their dry leathery skin, often covered in many wart-like bumps. This is in contrast to the smooth and always moist skin of true frogs. These bumps are just a natural part of a toad's skin and have nothing to do with disease or infection. The bumps are constant in size and will not spread to your own skin if you handle a toad. Another characteristic people use to mark out toads from frogs is their relatively short legs and their restricted capacity for jumping. As a result of these smaller legs, toads move in small hops and crawls rather than leaps. Toads are also known for being a bit more hardy in drier conditions than most other frogs. Though still dependent on water for thermal regulation and reproduction, they can live longer away from water bodies and even find alternatives if water is inaccessible. Some toads in places with seasonal rainfall and dry seasons can bury themselves in muck or mud and hibernate until the rains come back around and replenish dried water bodies. Next is body composition. Many experts assert that true frogs have lean athletic bodies while toads are bulkier and appear fat in comparison. This body composition also lends itself to the different ways the two move about. Lean bodies allow for greater jumping power and agility than toads, which have a more lumbering and clumsy way of moving about on land. Coloration is another way to tell in some cases. If it's bright yellow, blue, red, or some other vibrant color, you're probably looking at a true frog. Toads are more likely to sport neutral colors that blend in with their surroundings. You can also tell them apart at their egg and tadpole faces. Frogs are more likely to lay their eggs near the water's edge, while toads lay their eggs around vegetation in the deeper parts of a water body. Furthermore, frogs' eggs are typically laid in slimy clumps that resemble a bunch of grapes. Toads, on the other hand, lay their eggs in linear strings, not clumps. The tadpoles themselves are different. Toad tadpoles are generally thicker than frog tadpoles, and they usually have a plain black color. Frog tadpoles are slimmer and flecked with different colors like yellow, hinting at their more colorful parentage. What is the difference between wolves and coyotes? Wolves and coyotes are among the most misidentified wild animals out there, constantly mistaken for each other where their home ranges overlap. Luckily, we've decided to help everyone using today's video, where we will look at these canine cousins in a little more detail. By the end, you'll have no problem telling a wolf from a coyote, or vice versa. So let's get going. Wolves. Wolves, also known as Canis lupus, are the biggest wild member of the dog family, Canidae. These ancient wild dogs are also among the most iconic creatures in nature, playing prominent roles in countless traditional and modern cultures. Technically, the animal we call the wolf is classified under the umbrella term gray wolf. It has up to 30 wild subspecies as well as derivatives like dingoes and domestic dogs. The modern species, Canis lupus, has been around for about 1.1 million years, having descended from Canis mosbacensis, a prehistoric wolf species that went extinct in the Middle Pleistocene. The species is called the gray wolf because this is the most common coloration. However, in reality, wolves can range from totally brown, black, gray, rust, or white to infinite mishmashes of any of these colors. So you could say gray is the average color for these animals. Wolves are mainly native to the northern hemisphere, and they range throughout North America, Europe, and Asia. Subspeciation is often based on the unique adaptations to specific regions, which is why they have names like Iberian wolf, Canis lupus signatus, Italian wolf, Canis lupus italicus, or Arabian wolf, Canis lupus arabs. Of course, with humans in charge of much of their historical range, wolves have significantly reduced habitats and populations. Living alongside large, dangerous predators is tricky to say the least, so humans have gone a long way toward protecting themselves and their livestock. Globally, no large predator terrorizes farms and farmers like the wolf. Lone wolves can wreak horror upon poultry houses, while good-sized packs are existential threats to sheep, goats, cattle, and even people. Armed with sharp teeth, size, stamina, and a relentless attitude, wolves are ruthlessly efficient predators who often rule as apex hunters in many parts of their home ranges. Of course, without a doubt, the wolf's most important tool/weapon is its high sociability. Wolf packs multiply these animals' already incredible individual strengths to create an entity that is almost impossible for rivals or prey to beat. These groups are held together by strong social bonds that are themselves reinforced with a variety of communication methods. Wolves have a wide range of complex body language cues, as well as vocalizations like growls, whimpers, yelps, and the famous long-distance howl. A typical wolf pack consists of an alpha pair of adults, their offspring, and subadults. Other adults may also join a pack in the right conditions, such as if there's enough food to go around, or if the pack leaders need to boost the group's numbers for territorial defense or conquest. Wolves are highly aggressive creatures, ready to fight to the death for territory, food, or to protect their young. They also have to fight against some of the harshest climates and environments on Earth. Most wolf populations live in regions with long and brutally lean winters, while others live in scorching deserts and arid zones. Not to mention the various fellow predators that pose all kinds of threats. Depending on the particular neck of the woods, wolves often compete against mountain lions, striped hyenas, jackals, coyotes, bears, lynxes, and tigers. All of these killers hate wolves with a passion and would not hesitate to get one over on them. Vulnerable wolf pups are frequently the victims of these interspecies disputes, while wolves pay back their rivals in the same bloody coin, often with interest. When it comes to size, wolves are quite variable depending on factors like location, sex, and time of the year. Wolves are often at their heaviest in late summer and autumn because of prey abundance, and at their leanest in late winter, when the hard times have taken their toll. European wolves are, on average, a little bigger than their cousins from other parts of the world. Generally, though, they range between 41 and 63 inches in body length, excluding the tails. Tails are 11 to 20 inches long, while shoulder height is from 31 to 33 inches. Weight ranges from 26 pounds to 175 pounds. Females of any given subspecies or population are often 5 to 10 pounds smaller than their male counterparts. Like many mammals in its domain, the wolf can grow an extra layer of protection, a winter coat with long, rough hairs to stifle the biting wind. Underneath, it has an undercoat with short, dense fur. The winter coat comes in at the end of autumn and is shed during spring. At its thickest, a wolf's winter fur can allow it to brave temperatures of minus 40 degrees Celsius. The fur is even resistant to ice-forming condensation. Thanks to their natural winter protection and complex thermoregulation systems, wolves can focus solely on doing what they do best: hunting and killing. Most of their prey is made up of ungulates, though the specific animals differ depending on the range. That said, animals like moose, elk, red deer, caribou, sambar, white-tailed deer, mule deer, and wild boar are staples. They will also go after hares, foxes, bears, lizards, birds, and all types of rodents. Livestock may also feature on a wolf's menu depending on circumstances. Oftentimes it is elderly, injured, or sick wolves that are driven to prey on pets and farm animals, which risks human interaction and retaliation. Wolves use a variety of tactics to catch and dispatch prey. Most of them rely on their speed and incredible stamina. These wild dogs can chase prey for hours on end, wearing it down with sheer fatigue before moving in for the kill. Coyotes. The coyote, also known as the prairie wolf, brush wolf, or American jackal, is another prominent member of the Canidae family in Canis genus. Though it is under the same genus as wolves, the coyote's scientific name is Canis latrans. For the most part, coyotes are significantly smaller than true lupus wolves and are therefore less likely to be apex predators. Though highly proficient hunters themselves, coyotes meet a lot of their dietary requirements by scavenging the leavings of larger predators like wolves or mountain lions. In essence, they have a similar ecological niche as Eurasian golden jackals or African black-backed jackals, animals known for high adaptability, scavenging, and small-time predation. There are 19 subspecies of Canis latrans, distributed throughout North America and the northern tips of Central America. They range in color, though not as much as wolves. Coloration is often a combination of light gray, rust, white, and tawny brown. Subspecies in eastern North America have darker coats than subspecies in the west. Coyotes in the east are bigger too. Average weight ranges from 25 pounds to 40 pounds, but many adult specimens fall above or below this range. Body length is between 39 and 53 inches, and this includes a 16-inch tail. Females are a little smaller than males, and weight can vary significantly depending on the coyote's home range and the time of the year. The biggest coyote ever documented was a male killed in the 1930s. This specimen was 59 inches long and weighed a hefty 75 pounds. While smaller than wolves, coyotes have longer and more pointed muzzles and ears, at least relative to body size. The overall body profile is more slender and less robust than a wolf's as well. Their brain cases are larger too, pound for pound. Another important difference is that coyotes move around with their tail pointed downwards rather than horizontally like wolves. The word coyote is a Spanish derivative of the Aztec Mexicano word coyotl, and it was once written as coyote or coyote before European settlers in the Americas settled on the modern spelling. There are two main ways of pronouncing the word in English. One is to keep the E at the end silent, and the other involves pronouncing the E, which gives the word 3 syllables. In the US, the 3-syllable pronunciation is more common, while the 2-syllable way is used more frequently outside the US. Which brings us to another major difference between coyotes and wolves. Coyotes are only found in the New World, specifically North America and some parts of Central America. There are 0 native coyotes in Eurasia, Africa, or anywhere else, and these places have their own versions of jackals or coyote-like animals. Coyotes are synonymous with wide-open grass plains where the deer and bison play. They also thrive in semi-arid zones and desert conditions. Like wolves, though, coyotes are highly sociable, though they can and often do go at it alone. Because coyotes are not dependent on large prey as wolves are, they are a bit flexible when it comes to opting for life in groups or alone. That said, teaming up with other coyotes opens up opportunities to go after large game. These animals can live in nuclear families, loosely related groups, or non-related groupings. Family groups are established when a male and female pair up and mate, find a territory, build a den, and have a litter of pups. Coyotes are strictly monogamous for the duration of each reproductive cycle, and males assist females with den building, guarding the den, and sourcing food for pups. Coyote pups are born after a 63-day gestation period and grow fast. Interestingly, unlike wolf pups, baby coyotes are very aggressive with each other right off the bat, engaging in real fighting that can lead to serious injury or death. This behavior is meant to establish dominance hierarchies among the pups. Only after the respective rankings are solidified do the pups begin playing for fun. Pups reach full size by 8 months and full weight by 9, and are more than capable of helping their parents with big game hunting. When it comes to diet, the coyote is far from fussy. They eat anything from beetles and grasshoppers to toads and rodents, birds, reptiles, and any ungulate they can catch and kill. Carrion also plays a big role in their diet, and coyotes will scavenge pretty much any kind of meat, including human flesh. Cannibalism is also pretty common with this species. In North America at least, coyotes are arguably a bigger menace to farms and other human settlements. These guys go after all kinds of pets and livestock while carrying a bunch of serious diseases. Coyote is also much more comfortable around human settlements than wolves, and as a result, Coyotes are a much more frequent sight and problem in urban areas. According to recent statistics, coyotes are the #1 wild animal threat to domestic dogs and cats in the US and Canada, so best keep your gate or doors locked. What is the difference between wasps and hornets? The curious world of insects sure has more than its fair share of remarkable characters buzzing about. Mean, sting-happy insects in particular have long been a subject of great curiosity, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what there is to see. Today, we've decided to look at two notorious flyby shooters, wasps and hornets, that have well-earned reputations for aggression and overall nastiness. What are the similarities between the two? And more importantly, what are the differences? Let's talk about it. Distant relatives. For starters, both wasps and hornets belong to the Hymenoptera order of insects. Wasp is the generic term for any insect in the Apocrita suborder of Hymenoptera that isn't an ant or a bee. Bees belong to the clade Anthophila, while ants belong to the Formicidae family under the Apocrita suborder. Generally speaking, wasps are characterized as winged insects with narrow waists and the ability to sting repeatedly. In some species, however, female wasps do not have wings, which can be confusing. To add even more confusion to the definition, male wasps do not have stingers, so they cannot sting. So how do wasps differ from, let's say, bees? Well, bees have wider waists and can only deliver one sting before dying. Furthermore, wasps have hairless bodies compared to fuzzy bees. You'll find bees, ants, and sawflies are usually featured in taxonomic discussions about wasps because they are very closely related and share common ancestors. Therefore, the waters can get a little muddy where classification is concerned. After all, taxonomists are often classifying, reclassifying, and unclassifying these critters across genera, species, subfamilies, and all that other jargon. Then they have long-running debates about them. There are dozens of wasp families, taxonomically speaking, and there are several 100,000 species, if not 1 million or more. Despite decades of exploration, discovery, and study by insectologists, we haven't even discovered 50% of wasp species, meaning there is still plenty we do not know. But we also know quite a bit. For starters, we know wasps are highly adaptable. There are wasps everywhere in the world, bar the polar regions. Some are solitary, some live in pairs, while others are highly social and live as part of a hive. Hive wasps are also known as eusocial wasps. This global distribution means that wasps live in many environments, from wooded forests to scorching deserts, open grasslands, and swamps. Different wasp genera and species have evolved for life in specific environments. Wasps can live deep in the wilderness or right on your front porch. Wasps have long had a complex relationship with humans. Most people who encounter a wasp quickly get nervous, and for good reason. When threatened or provoked, wasps will not hesitate to turn on you and deliver repeated stings. The stinger, located at the back of the abdomen, is retractable and used to inject venom into prey and would-be predators. The stinger is an evolution of the ovipositor, the canal through which females lay their eggs. Because males have no ovipositor, they do not have stingers. Many wasps are largely carnivorous, preying on other bugs including butterflies, bees, moths, spiders, aphids, and worms. This love for bug flesh also makes wasps a friendly sight for farmers who need help fighting off crop-killing pests like aphids and grasshoppers. They use their sizable mandibles to cut and manipulate food into their mouths. Wasps also feed on nectar, and adults in many species live on the stuff exclusively. They have a suction proboscis that allows them to consume their favorite tasty treat. In fact, many species have a penchant for sweetness, which is why all your picnics seem to attract uninvited buzzers. As far as the rest of their anatomy, wasps are classic insects. They have the traditional head, thorax, abdomen structure, 6 legs, and a hardened chitin exoskeleton that protects their bodies. This exoskeleton design is inspiring all sorts of human-scale inventions, including super soldier exoskeleton suits that, theoretically, allow wearers to run faster, jump higher, and yes, possibly fly. Speaking of which, wasps have 2 pairs of wings, one on each side. The forewings are larger and are connected to the smaller hindwings by a series of tiny hooks. Wasps have a large pair of compound eyes, as well as smaller eyes on the vertex of the head. These smaller eyes are called ocelli, and a wasp has several. Like many other insects, wasps have various development cycles. They start off as freshly laid eggs before hatching as larvae. Wasp larvae are very similar to maggots and are very vulnerable. Larvae usually grow up in a nest or inside a host's body. That's right, some wasps lay their eggs inside prey animals like ladybugs or cockroaches, so the larvae hatch inside them and eat their way out. Wasps that rear young this way are known as parasitoid wasps, and there are thousands of species, each with its own twist on this grisly practice. So, now that we've touched on the basics of what wasps are, let's talk about hornets. Well, to be frank, the term hornet refers to wasps in the genus Vespa, under the Vespidae family. That's right, all hornets are wasps, but not all wasps are hornets. Like most of the Vespidae family, hornets are eusocial wasps. In fact, hornets are the largest of the eusocial wasps, and some species can reach lengths of 2.2 inches. There are 22 known species in existence and 8 extinct species, and all of them live in the northern hemisphere, but not within the Arctic Circle. The European hornet, aka Vespa crabro, is the most common species. This hornet dwells throughout Europe and as far east as southern Siberia and eastern China. However, by far and away, the most feared species is the Asian giant hornet, Vespa mandarinia, which lives in Japan and parts of Southeast Asia and India. The Asian giant, also known as the Japanese giant hornet or giant sparrow bee, is the largest wasp species in the world. Queens often exceed 2 inches in length, while workers and drones range between 1.5 and 1.6 inches. Hornets spend most of their days in service to the hive, either as workers, drones, or queens. Workers are non-reproductive female hornets that carry out the widest range of tasks for the hive. They are responsible for the physical construction and maintenance of the hive, hunting for food, feeding and tending to larvae, tending to the queen, and defending the hive from threats. Most adult hornets in a given hive are workers, armed with their famous sting. Drones are adult male hornets with a single role: to fertilize queens and help spawn the next generation of vicious, stinging super wasps. There are much fewer drones than workers in a given hive. Drones are good at being good-looking, but they lack the mean sting females have. Queens are the heads of hornet nests and are the largest specimens. The queen's role is to scout for sites suitable for building hives, mate with drones, and lay eggs. Queens also build the hexagonal cells in which eggs, and eventually larvae, are kept. So essentially, the role of a hornet nest is to successfully rear new generations of queens and drones that will go on to form new hives elsewhere. Like most wasps, hornets operate on an olfactory plane. Smell plays an integral role in finding food, finding mates, and defending the home front. If a hornet is attacked and killed near its nest, the corpse will release pheromones that notify the rest of the hive of the threat. When the others get a whiff of the smell, they storm out and sting anything or anyone in sight. Because of this hyper-aggression, hornets are often regarded as pests in most of the regions they live. Honey farmers also hate hornets because they prey on honeybee hives. Interestingly, a squadron of 30 to 50 hornets can wipe out a hive of 10,000 bees in a matter of hours. When attacking prey, hornets use their fronts and rears. Their massive mandibles are perfect for decapitating aggressive bees and mantises, while their venom-laced stingers are perfect for subduing bulkier beetles and grasshoppers. A hornet hive is ravenous and must cater to the appetites of up to 700 workers, dozens of drones, and any number of larvae. As a result, a single hive can have significant ecological impacts. Hornets are highly regulated, and moving them across international borders is heavily restricted because they are highly invasive and highly dangerous. Differences between hornets and wasps. So how do hornets differ from their non-Vespa relatives? Well, for starters, and probably most important to you, hornets have a significantly meaner sting than other wasps. Folks unlucky enough to be stung by both almost always say the hornet was worse. This is likely a result of the relatively large volumes of acetylcholine in hornet venom compared to non-Vespa wasps. In a nutshell, acetylcholine has acetic acid that can wreak havoc on your nerves and hurt like all hell. The prospect of being stung by a hornet is also much more dangerous because a hornet is likely to have backup. The same 30 to 50 hornets that can destroy beehives can kill an adult human with repeated stings. 1 or 2 stings typically causes extreme pain, swelling, and redness for a few hours or even days. Hundreds of stings could cause dizziness, chest pains, heart attacks, hives, coughing, anxiety, paralysis, and death. If you are extra sensitive or allergic to hornet venom, even 1 sting could cause serious trouble. Another difference is that hornets are larger than other wasps. Hornets tend to be longer and thicker than the sleek profile of a typical wasp. Diet is another area of potential difference. Adult wasps generally have a much greater affinity for the sugars in nectar and your can of Coke. Wasps cannot resist the smell of sweet foods and will usually investigate if they encounter it. Hornets also go after sugars, but it's usually at select times of the year and for specific reasons within the hive. Generally, hornets are much more active predators than typical wasps. Wasps' love for nectar also leads us to another interesting difference. They are pollinators. Of course, because they are relatively hairless, wasps are not as effective at transporting pollen as hair-covered bees. However, their movement from flower to flower still contributes to plant reproduction. Interestingly, countries like Germany are extremely protective of wasps and wasp nests because of this. Hornets seldom visit flowers, so their impact on pollination is near zero. Now let's talk about nests. Both hornets and wasps use chewed wood and saliva to make papery nests for rearing young and kicking back from the hustle and bustle. Hornet nests are generally larger than other social wasp nests. A hornet nest is about the size of a basketball, while the largest wasp nests are no bigger than an NFL football. Also, wasps tend to build their nests on top of or under horizontal platforms, like a roof eave or ceilings. Some wasps, like the yellow-jacket wasp, commonly mistaken for a hornet, build nests in underground burrows seized from or abandoned by other bugs. A hanging or platformed wasp nest is usually spherical and may have multiple entrances. Hornets generally build their nests in trees and bushes elevated off the ground. A hanging hornet nest is likely to be entirely closed off with only a single entrance. In some cases, hornets will form nests in open cavities like hollowed tree stumps. Only one hornet species, the ground hornet, makes nests underground. Sociability is another difference. Some non-Vespa wasps are social and form hives, while many others are solitary. However, all hornets are social and live in hives. Next is coloration. Most wasps have some combination of yellow and black, particularly striping. Some wasps also feature some red and blue patches. Most hornet species also stick to black and yellow, but a few species, like the ferocious bald-faced hornet, have black and white striping. If you see a large wasp with black and white rings on its abdomen, run. It's a hornet. What's the difference between chimpanzees and bonobos? Chimpanzees and bonobos are famous for being our closest living relatives today, but do you know how to tell them apart? Most people don't, which is where today's video comes in. We're going to look at each of them in turn to see what makes them so similar and, crucially, what makes them different. So, with that out of the way, let's head into the heart of the forest and pay these wild cousins of ours a visit. Chimpanzees. Chimpanzees, aka pantroglodytes, hardly need an introduction. From their depictions in countless nature shows and movies to their prominent displays in zoos and circuses, and even space voyages, it's easy to see why chimpanzees are certified A-list celebrities. Like humans, chimpanzees are hominids, hominines, and hominins. Hominid refers to the Hominidae family, while hominine and hominin refer to creatures under the Homininae subfamily and Homininae tribe, respectively. Ancestors of the chimps genus, Pan, diverged from human ancestors during the Miocene epoch, roughly 8 million years ago. Today, we have about 4 subspecies within a distribution range that stretches from west to east Africa and as far south as Zambia. They live in a bunch of different habitats, from tropical rainforests to open woodlands and dry grasslands, swamps, and in the mountains. They are highly adaptable and quick to learn about their environment's opportunities and threats. Chimpanzees are highly intelligent animals that display a wide range of problem-solving skills, situational and contextual awareness, and high trainability. The use of tools like rocks or sticks is common as well, with groups and individuals from different areas having different ways of using similar tools. Another aspect of their intelligence is their advanced sociability. These animals live in very complex social groupings of up to 150 individuals. The groupings are called fusion-fission societies, with fusion referring to a grand tribe of chimps that holds a certain territory. A fusion is made up of smaller, more intimate familial groupings known as fissions. Unlike the ladder-like hierarchical systems many social animals use, chimpanzees have something more akin to a class system. That's right, some fissions rank higher than others, and chimps in a particular fission hang out with and reproduce with individuals from similarly ranked classes. Despite their rigid rankings of fissions, individual chimpanzees can rise or fall very far if they play the political game right, or extremely wrong. That means there is a lot of drama in chimpanzee societies, with plots, jealousy, secrets, power plays, and shady alliances all part of a regular Tuesday for these guys. Violence often accompanies this drama, and sometimes even defines it. Behind humans, chimpanzees are the most violent hominids in the world, and this violent streak is facilitated by their insane physical strength and athleticism. Most people think gorillas are the most dangerous and bloodthirsty of the wild apes, but the large vegetarians are relatively gentle giants compared to their smaller cousins. For starters, unlike gorillas, chimpanzees are not wholly herbivorous. Meat is a prominent part of their diet, and they love it more than anything, often going to extremes to get it. Chimpanzees are opportunistic predators who will prey on anything they can catch and overpower. Their meat menu consists of birds, monkeys, rodents, and antelope. Chimps are even known to prey on juvenile gorillas at times, and in rare cases, human children. Unlike other apes, chimpanzees have a long history of attacks on humans, both in the wild and in captivity. They have been known to do everything from picking off people on the edge of villages to ruthlessly turning on trusted handlers at zoos and in homes. Some people who have handled and owned pet chimpanzees for years have suffered horror moments when their cuddly friends or research subjects bit their or their loved ones' face off. However, the worst of chimp violence is often reserved for other chimps. Males in particular are the worst perpetrators of this. Most times, violence is used to secure territorial boundaries. Trespassers who violate these borders may find themselves on the wrong end of an ambush, because chimpanzees are not overwhelmingly huge fans of fair, single combat. Gangs of territorial chimps have been known to surround invaders, hold them down, and deliver brutal beatdowns using fists, teeth, sticks, and rocks. These victims' bodies are often left on the scene almost like a message to other potential violators, meaning that chimps understand the difference between killing for predation and cold-blooded murder. At home, violence is used to establish dominance and jostle for rank. Young upstart males are always sniffing for weakness among their elders, while older males are always ready to deliver painful lessons. However, these domestic squabbles seldom result in death, as submission, grooming, and food offerings go a long way to assuaging grievances. In fairly rare cases, some especially large fusions can go through civil wars, where some fissions aim to supplant or eradicate rival subgroups. Of course, chimp society is not just defined by violence alone. These animals are extremely empathic and sensitive to each other's needs. They experience grief when their friends and family members die, and they celebrate others' success, like when a young chimp learns to use a certain tool. These close bonds can be sustained for many years, even for life. Concepts like best friends, favoritism, and even the adoption of a close friend's orphans are pretty normal for chimps. Bonds are maintained through sharing food and grooming one another, as well as collaborating during nest building. Another fascinating part of chimpanzees' awesome brain power is their photographic memory. Chimps can remember other chimps they last saw years or decades ago, even in photographs. They routinely ace memory games and tests presented to them by scientists, even going as far as outperforming the scientists themselves. Chimps need this precise memory to help them remember their vast home ranges and maintain their complex social systems. Their close proximity to us also makes them prime subjects for all types of research and applications, from medicine, cognitive research, military, space exploration, and beyond. Of course, a lot of this research is, at the very least, ethically questionable. History abounds with horror stories of chimpanzees and other animals as test subjects in nightmarish experiments. And we cannot confidently say the present day is free of such problems. Chimps are also able to learn a bunch of skills, including party tricks and even acting on stage and in Hollywood. Movies, TVs, magazines, and limousines are all part of their habitat too, and they thrive under the spotlight as well as they do in the jungles of the Congo. They are truly remarkable animals. Bonobos. Bonobos, like chimpanzees, are part of the Pan genus. However, their full scientific name is Panpaniscus, not troglodytes. Of course, given their close physical resemblance to chimps, bonobos are also known as pygmy chimpanzees. As this informal name suggests, bonobos are a bit smaller than common chimpanzees. Males generally max out at around 132 pounds, with females being about 2/3 of the size. Their heads are smaller than those of chimps too, with less pronounced brow ridges above the eyes. However, female bonobos have more pronounced breasts than their troglodytes counterparts. Additionally, bonobos have far fewer numbers and much smaller distribution range than common chimps. Their native range is restricted to the area north of the Kasai River and south of the Congo River in the thick tropical forests of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This means they have very little contact with chimps, who tend to stick to the realms north of the Congo River. Diet is another key difference between these two primates. Bonobos are far more content with a plant-based diet than the more carnivorous chimpanzees. In fact, a typical bonobo ape can consume and process north of 9 metric tons, or 20,000 pounds, of seeds alone in its lifetime. Seeds can be dispersed up to 3.1 miles from their home tree. This seed processing actually improves the seed's ability and speed of germination. A few plants, like velvet tamarinds, are highly dependent on their seeds being processed by bonobos and other frugivores. That's a whole lot of good environmental work by any standard. In fact, only forest elephants process and disperse seeds at comparable and greater levels. This makes a bonobo a keystone species in its home environment. Removing them from this habitat would have untold ripple effects on future generations of flora and fauna. And unfortunately, these poor animals continue to face intense pressure from humans. Hunting and loss of native range due to human expansion are the main problems, and as a result, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, places them in the endangered tier. Today, there are between 15,000 and 20,000 bonobos living in a native range of 193,000 square miles. Like chimps, bonobos live in highly complex social groupings called troops. However, their systems are more matriarchal than chimp fissions and fusions, with females playing prominent roles in leadership and having a greater say in mate selection. Bonobo troops are nomadic compared to their more territorial chimpanzees. Given their even sexual distribution and widely available food sources, they have very little need to protect territories. Another interesting thing about bonobos is their male philopatrism. This just means male bonobos get to stay in their natal troops upon reaching maturity, and they inherit rank from their mothers. Females, however, often have to move away to prevent incest. Life within a troop is pretty varied because bonobos can be anything from gentle, empathic, altruistic, violent, and very flirty. In fact, bonobo sexuality is the stuff of legends. Females, which are in heat way more often than female chimps, are especially talented at using sex as a bargaining chip when seeking food or security from males. Sexual activity is a social lubricant among bonobos, as it can be used for greetings and conflict resolution. Bonobo passion also includes fruit-flavored kisses. They are the only wild animals ever documented tongue-kissing, which is pretty wild. The free-spirited bonobos are not the monogamous type either. They can change partners at the drop of a banana and take on new lovers for the thrill of it. However, the height of bonobo craziness has to be their celebratory orgies. When the troop is excited about a new feeding zone or even a kill, they get worked up into frenzies that typically end in group sex. Ultimately, bonobos are very similar to chimpanzees as far as appearance and intelligence, but their social systems, dietary tendencies, and nomadic ways mark them out as completely different animals. What is the difference between llamas and alpacas? South America is home to a vibrant range of breathtaking flora and fauna, largely thanks to the continent's diverse environment. From the dense vegetation of the Amazon rainforest to the thin atmosphere at the peaks of the Andes, precious life finds a way. Today's video focuses on two popular South American residents, a group of animals so adaptable and versatile that humans have relied on them for thousands of years and beyond. We are, of course, referring to the llama and the alpaca. What's the story with these creatures? Are they one and the same? Or are there noteworthy differences? Well, say goodbye to your confusion because today we're going to find answers. Let's begin. What is a llama? Llamas are four-legged mammals belonging to the Camelidae family, along with camels, alpacas, guanacos, and vicuñas. Like all camelids, llamas are ungulates in the Artiodactyla order, along with whales, cattle, deer, and pigs. They belong to the genus Llama, and their full scientific name is Llama glama, which is pretty awesome. There is only one true species of llama, although they are frequently confused with alpacas, guanacos, and vicuñas, which also fall under the llama genus. Llamas are wholly domesticated and have lived alongside humans since before records began. It is believed that llamas are descended from wild guanacos, but there's a fair chance that hybridization of alpacas and vicuñas may have played a role in the rise of the llama. They are bred for wool and meat, with wool in particular being a driver for commercial farmers and breeders. The wool from the animal's undercoats is used for garments and other fine crafts, while wool from the outer coat is normally used for ropes and rugs. Llamas also have served as reliable pack animals for centuries. In rarer cases, some people keep them as pets and companions. They also have long-running cultural significance in their native regions and feature prominently in the histories and practices of people like the Inca and the Moche. In modern times, people have begun harnessing the llama's protective instincts and put them to work as overgrown, spitting guard dogs. Llamas were placed in the Camelidae family because of their camel-like characteristics. They have a long neck, a relatively small barrel, as well as long, slender legs with 2 toes each. Also like camels, llamas have elongated snouts that end at a quirky mouth. You see, all members of the camel family have a special prehensile upper lip, used to grasp food and other things, but mostly food. Inside the mouth, llamas have a set of 32 teeth, but males have 3 additional fangs called fighting teeth. Farmers typically defang these bad boys early before they can do damage. A llama's body is almost entirely covered in wool. Some are woollier than others though, depending on the breed. However, the neck, barrel, and thighs are almost always covered in wool. The animal's face, lower shins, and feet are significantly less fuzzy. Llamas vary in size, but are generally the largest species in their genus. Fully grown individuals range between 5 feet 7 inches and 5 feet 11 inches in shoulder height. Weight ranges greatly subject to age, breed, and feeding. Adult llamas can weigh anywhere between 287 and 600 pounds. Males, called studs or machos, are generally larger than females, which are called dams or hembras. Baby llamas are called crías, which is Spanish for babies. These little ones have a birth weight range of 20 to 30 pounds. Female llamas develop and reach sexual maturity much sooner than males, 12 months compared to 24 to 36 months. Lifespan is generally between 20 and 25 years, but some individuals can live past 30. The llama is a highly social animal that can live in herds up to 100 individuals. Herds are often made up of harems and their crías. Each harem is under a single stud, who may have 6 or more dams to breed with. These animals understand the strength in numbers and they rely on each other to watch out for predators, friendship, and general familial support. However, llama politics is also very dynamic, and members, especially males, are always jockeying for positions. Biting, kicking, neck-butting, and the classic spitting in each other's faces are the go-to tactics for bickering llamas. Fights can be quite devastating, especially if the fighting teeth are not removed. Victors have the opportunity to acquire or expand their harems and sire more crías. Llamas are strictly herbivorous. They eat grass, leaves, fruit, and a variety of plant and grain-based feeds. Adult llamas need about 2% of their body weight in food every day. Crías are dependent on their mother's milk for the first 6 months of life and are completely weaned off milk at around 10 months. Llamas are also famed for their hardiness in the face of scarce water supply. They have extra long intestines and colons that allow them to reabsorb water and go for days without drinking a drop. This trait is why they are so successful in their often dry environments. Llamas are traditionally found in the Andean regions of western South America, but today you can find them all over the Americas. There are millions of them in South America and an ever-growing number in North America. Commercial llama farming and the llama pet trade are huge in the US and Canada these days. What is an alpaca? Alpacas pretty much share the same taxonomic, physiological, and social makeup as the llama. Even-toed ungulate with a camelid body profile? Check. Long neck and flappy, split upper lip? Double check. Potential to spit in your face at a moment's notice? Triple check. Known as llama pacos to scientists, the alpaca is also native to the Andean region, particularly southern Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and northern Chile. However, like llamas, alpacas can be found everywhere because they are gaining popularity as livestock or pets. Alpacas are the domesticated descendants of wild vicuñas, but other animals in the llama genus may be mixed up in there. Today we have two established breeds, the Suri and the Huacaya. They are traditionally bred for wool and meat. Alpaca wool is way more in demand than llama wool and has many more uses in clothing, carpeting, art, and handicrafts. The iconic poncho is often fashioned using alpaca wool. Wool texture and coloration are the main driving forces behind selective breeding. There are over 52 natural alpaca fiber colors. In modern times, this fluffy animal has become a rather unique choice of pet. They are generally very sweet and playful. Their love of human attention and cuddles also makes them superb therapy animals. Mature alpacas measure between 32 and 39 inches at the shoulder and weigh between 106 and 198 pounds. Machos are slightly larger than hembras. Like llamas, alpacas have been prominent parts of native South American culture for millennia. The Moche and Inca featured them in art and used the animals in many rituals, including sacrifices to deities or ancestral spirits. Again, much like their cousins, alpacas are highly social. They live in close-knit familial groups consisting of the hembras, their crias, and a dominant stud. They use a combination of braying sounds, hissing, and body language to communicate. Males are often embroiled in fights for dominance and reproductive rights. For this, they have evolved fighting teeth to administer some serious hurt. Alpaca's high sociability is also paired with notable intelligence. Alpacas are highly observant creatures that can quickly learn habits and patterns. This intelligence also makes them very trainable. You can train your alpaca to do simple tricks, or you could even train him to watch over your sheep. Alpacas have also boarded the therapy animal train. Highly reputed health institutions like the Mayo Clinic have championed studies and observations of therapy animals' impact on both mental and physical well-being, and the results are shockingly good. Things on the reproductive front are quite similar to llamas. Dams are quick breeders and only need to mate once to get pregnant. They reach sexual maturity at 12 months and males after 2 years. Crias are born seamlessly and can walk and run along with mom within an hour of life, a key trait in a world filled with coyotes, eagles, cats, and human hunters. Alpacas are successful animals because of their insane adaptability and intelligence. Their amazing coats can keep out the fiercest cold, while their internal water recycling system can support them for weeks in bone-dry deserts, so they'll do great at your farm or ranch. Differences between the two. Let's kick off with lineage. Llamas are primarily based on the wild guanaco from the same neck, no pun, of the woods. The guanaco, though smaller than the llama, is the larger of the two wild Andean camelids. Guanacos are notoriously aggressive and assertive around their family and home range. Spitting and violent swipes of the front feet are how they deliver justice. Alpacas, on the other hand, are offshoots of the cutesy vicuña. This baby-faced fuzzball has long adapted to rely on quick thinking and acute senses to evade the jaws of a world full of killers. The next difference is size. Llamas are significantly larger than even the biggest purebred alpacas. Really big llamas can reach 600 pounds, while alpacas can hardly get past 200. Size difference also leads to differences in transportation capabilities. While alpacas can carry stuff, they can't carry much of it. Llamas, on the other hand, can comfortably carry 100 pounds for miles. Local folk in llama land often use the animals to save small children from walking crazy distances. Their faces are also different. Llamas have curved banana-esque ears. Alpaca ears are a touch straighter and less pronounced. Alpacas have shorter faces too, while llamas look like they're doing giraffe impressions. You can also tell the two camelids apart by their coats. Llamas have tough, rough-feeling hair that has somewhat limited use. Alpaca hair, on the other hand, is the backbone of an entire industry. You could quite literally dress in alpaca from head to toe. Hats, quilts, ponchos, scarves, socks, gloves, you name it. Personality is another defining trait. Alpacas are generally more eager to please and friendly. They absolutely love hanging out with other alpacas, other pets, and their human buddies. Llamas are just as social, but they also have an independent streak. They don't mind a little time to themselves. As far as outright aggression, alpacas would rather avoid confrontation. They will spit, but only when very provoked and cornered. Aggressive behavior is also easier to train away. Llamas are more confident and therefore more confrontational. These guys will definitely spit at you, even unprovoked. If a llama doesn't like your face, it's going to spit at it. Llamas can also cause serious injury by biting and kicking.